I love you.
Every family tells itself a story about who the problem was, a story about who suffered the most, a story about who tried their best. But almost no family tells the real story, because the real story isn't flattering, it isn't simple, and it doesn't end with innocence. The real story is this: some people don't just grow up with trauma, they grow up learning how to distribute it. And when they don't heal, they don't just pass pain down accidentally, they recreate systems that make pain inevitable. This is not a story about monsters, it's a story about mechanisms. Because trauma doesn't repeat because people are cruel. It repeats because trauma teaches rules about safety, power, love, and control. And those rules quietly organize entire lives. If you want to understand generational problems, you don't start with behavior, you start with the nervous system. Most people think trauma is an event, something that happened, something that ended, something you should be over by now. But trauma is not the event. Trauma is the adaptation. When a child grows up in an unsafe environment, emotionally, physically, or psychologically, their brain doesn't ask what is healthy. It asks, what keeps me alive? And whatever works becomes permanent. Hypervigilance, emotional shutdown, control, appeasement, aggression, dissociation. These are not personality traits, they are survival strategies. And here's the first rule of generational trauma. Survival strategies do not expire automatically. They age with the person. They grow into an adult who cannot tolerate emotional expression. A child learns that unpredictability is dangerous. They grow into an adult who controls everyone around them. A child learns love is conditional. They grow into an adult who uses love as leverage. And when those adults become parents, partners, or leaders, they don't pass down trauma memories. They pass down structures. There is a moment in every traumatized person's life that determines everything. The moment they gain power. Power doesn't have to be dramatic. It can be becoming a parent, becoming the emotional center of a relationship, becoming financially dominant, becoming morally superior, becoming the strong one, becoming the one who decides what's normal. Trauma reacts to power in two ways. Some people collapse under it, others weaponize it. This is where generational problems are born, because power gives trauma something it never had before: control. And control feels like safety to a nervous system that grew up helpless. So the traumatized person doesn't think, I want to hurt people. They think, I will never feel powerless again. And slowly, unconsciously, the rules of the household change. Feelings become threats. Disagreement becomes disrespect. Boundaries become betrayal. Autonomy becomes danger. The environment tightens, not because the person is evil, but because their body does not know how to feel safe without dominance. Children do not rebel against unsafe environments, they adapt to them. And adaptation always comes with a contract. The contract says, I will become what you need me to be if you keep me safe. So children learn to read moods better than language. They learn to scan tone, posture, silence, breathing. They learn who they are allowed to be and who they are not. This is how generational problems become invisible, because nothing has to be said. The rules are embodied, and those rules sound like, don't upset them, don't feel too much, don't need too much, don't question authority, don't bring up the past, don't expose the family. This is not discipline. This is conditioning. And conditioned children grow into adults who confuse obedience with love. They either replicate the system or they seek it elsewhere. Most people who grow up in traumatic homes believe one thing with absolute certainty: I will never be like them. And on the surface, they're right. They don't repeat the same behaviors. They don't use the same words. They don't commit the same actions. But trauma doesn't repeat behavior. It repeats dynamics. So instead of yelling, they withdraw. Instead of hitting, they shame. Instead of chaos, they impose rigidity. Instead of neglect, they smother. Different expression, same nervous system. Because what they're actually reacting against is helplessness. And helplessness is intolerable to someone who once lived inside it. So they swing to the opposite extreme, and extremes are never healthy. This is how trauma convinces people they've evolved, while quietly continuing the cycle. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the part of the psyche that holds everything we were not allowed to be. In families, the shadow doesn't disappear. It gets assigned. One child carries the anger. One child carries the shame. One child carries the sadness. One child carries the rebellion. The family feels balanced because someone is holding the darkness. But that balance is false because the shadow always demands expression. So the child who carries it grows up marked. They become the difficult one, the unstable one, the problem, the disappointment. And when they leave, another child takes their place. This is not coincidence. It's a system protecting itself. Because if no one carries the shadow, the family would have to face it. And facing it would require accountability. Here is the part most people avoid. Some traumatized people do not seek healing. They seek replication. Why? Because chaos is familiar. Because tension feels like home. Because calm feels suspicious. Because peace feels like waiting for impact. So they unconsciously provoke conflict, destabilize relationships, test loyalty through pain, escalate minor issues, reinterpret neutrality as rejection. Not because they enjoy suffering, but because suffering confirms their worldview. And a worldview built on trauma resists contradiction, because contradiction threatens identity. Healing is not comforting at first. Healing dismantles survival identities. The strong one, the responsible one, the self-sufficient one, the emotionless one, the never needs help one. Those identities kept the person alive. So when healing threatens them, the nervous system panics And panic looks like denial, minimization, intellectualization, blame shifting, rewriting history, attacking the truth teller. This is why some people protect generational problems, because the problems protect them. Generational trauma does not end with love. It ends with tolerance for emotional pain. The pain of admitting harm without self-destruction, feeling grief instead of rage, allowing children to be different, letting go of control, choosing repair over being right. The people who break cycles are not perfect. They are regulated. They can sit with discomfort without passing it down. They don't demand children carry what they refuse to face. Healthy families don't pass down perfection. They pass down repair after conflict, emotional accountability, safety during mistakes, boundaries without punishment, love without fear. That is what ends generational problems. Not silence, not loyalty, not denial. Truth. Every adult who was once a wounded child faces the same decision: continue the system or dismantle it. Trauma does not excuse harm, but understanding trauma explains how harm spreads. And once you understand that, you are responsible, not for what happened to you, but for what happens because of you. Generational problems end when someone decides that survival is no longer enough, that safety must replace control, that healing must replace identity, that the future matters more than defending the past. And when that happens, the chain doesn't just break, it dissolves.